Marcus Reeves grabbed the gray-haired newcomer by the throat and slammed him onto the cafeteria table so hard the metal legs screeched across concrete. Trays exploded in every direction. Boiling soup splashed across 3 inmates who scrambled backward, cursing and wiping their faces. A plastic fork stabbed deep into someone's palm, and the man's scream was swallowed by cruel laughter from Marcus's crew. "Welcome to Iron Gate, old man," Marcus snarled, his filed teeth inches from the stranger's face. "You're gonna learn real quick who owns you now." 300 inmates watched. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody dared. But the gray-haired man pinned to that table didn't struggle. Didn't beg. Didn't even blink. He smiled. And in that moment, Marcus Reeves made the worst mistake of his 15-year reign. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and comment below which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels around the world. Now let's get into it. 6 hours earlier, the transport bus had rolled through Iron Gate's front gates carrying 12 new inmates. Nathan Cole sat in the 3rd row, his wrists shackled to a steel bar, watching the prison grow larger through scratched plexiglass. The man beside him, a twitchy meth dealer named Roy Becker, hadn't stopped talking since they left the county jail. "You hear about this place," Roy whispered, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. "They call it the meat grinder. Guys go in standing up, come out in bags. My cousin did 2 years here. Said he saw a man get his throat cut over a pack of cigarettes. A pack of cigarettes, man. Can you believe that?" Nathan didn't respond. His eyes tracked the guard towers, counted the cameras, noted the blind spots in the perimeter fence. "Hey?" Roy nudged him with his elbow. "Hey, old-timer, you listening to me?" Nathan turned his head slowly. His pale gray eyes settled on Roy with an intensity that made the younger man physically recoil. "Your cousin," Nathan said quietly. "What was his name?" Tommy. Tommy Becker. Why, Tommy Becker died in Iron Gate, shanked in the shower block 4 years ago. It wasn't over cigarettes. He owed money to the wrong people and couldn't pay." Roy's face went white. How do you know that?" "I read." "Read what?" "That wasn't in any newspaper." Nathan turned back to the window. "Stop talking now, Roy. Save your energy. You're going to need it." Roy opened his mouth to respond, then thought better of it. He spent the rest of the ride in silence, pressed against the opposite side of the seat as far from Nathan as his shackles would allow. The bus groaned to a stop inside the prison compound. Steel doors crashed open. Guards in tan uniforms stormed aboard with batons ready. "On your feet, ladies, move it. Anyone who falls behind gets left behind." Nathan rose smoothly, his movements precise despite the restraints. The other inmates stumbled and shuffled. Nathan walked like a man who had done this 1,000 times before. Because he had. Just never on this side of the bars. Processing took 4 hours. Strip search, delousing shower, medical examination, fingerprints, photographs, psychological evaluation. Nathan moved through each station with patience, studying everything, memorizing everyone. The medical examiner, a board physician's assistant named Gonzalez, paused when he saw Nathan's torso. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "What happened to you?" Nathan's body was a roadmap of violence. Bullet wound scars on his left shoulder and right hip, a jagged line across his ribs where a knife had nearly killed him, burn marks on his back that spoke of things Gonzalez didn't want to imagine. "Car accident?" Nathan said flatly. "Car accident my ass. I've seen car accidents. This is..." Gonzalez trailed off, shaking his head. "You know what I don't want to know. Turn around. Cough." The psychological evaluation came next. A tired woman in her 50s, sat behind a metal desk covered in files. Her nameplate read Dr. Melissa Warren, staff psychologist. She looked up when Nathan entered and something flickered across her face. Recognition, concern, it vanished before Nathan could identify it. "Sit down, Mr. Cole." Nathan sat. Nathan Cole, age 47, convicted of armed robbery and aggravated assault, sentenced to 10 years. She closed the file and removed her glasses. "That's what the paperwork says. Would you like to tell me what really happened?" "The paperwork is accurate." "Is it?" She leaned forward. "Because I've been doing this job for 18 years, Mr. Cole. I've processed thousands of inmates. Murderers, rapists, gang leaders, cartel enforcers, and none of them, not a single one, has ever walked into my office the way you just did." "How did I walk?" "Like you own the building." She paused. "Or like you're here to burn it down." Nathan's expression didn't change. "I'm just here to serve my time, Doctor." "Military background?" "Army, long time ago." "What unit?" "Does it matter?" "It might. Irongate isn't kind to former military. The gangs see it as a challenge. A former soldier represents everything they hate about authority, about the system that put them here. She put her glasses back on. I'm going to recommend general population, cell block B, but I want you to understand something, Mr. Cole. I'm listening. There's a man in cell block B named Marcus Reeves. He's been here 15 years. He runs everything. Drugs, gambling, protection, information. Nothing happens in this prison without his approval. Her voice dropped. He's killed at least 3 men inside these walls. Probably more. And he will come for you. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because that's how he maintains control. He breaks every new arrival, every single one. Nathan nodded slowly. I appreciate the warning. My advice, don't fight him. Don't challenge him. Give him whatever he wants. Survival in here isn't about pride or dignity. It's about getting to your release date with your body intact. She signed something on her clipboard. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Nathan stood, his shackles clinking softly. I understand perfectly, Doctor. He walked toward the door, then stopped. One question. Yes. Marcus Reeves, which cell? Dr. Warren stared at him for a long moment. Why do you want to know that? Just curious. Cell 201, end of cell block B. She shook her head. Mr. Cole, I sincerely hope I don't see your name on an incident report by the end of the week. Nathan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You won't, Doctor. I promise you that. He left without looking back. Dr. Warren sat motionless for a full minute after he was gone. Then she picked up her phone and dialed an extension she hadn't used in 3 years. This is Warren. I need to speak with the warden. Immediately. Yes, it's urgent. We have a problem. Guard Thomas Hendricks had worked at Irongate for 11 years. He had seen things that would give normal people nightmares for the rest of their lives. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. Nathan Cole surprised him. You're in cell 247, Hendricks said as they walked down the main corridor of cell block B. Your cellmate's name is David Chen. Chinese guy, been here 8 years. Keeps his head down, doesn't cause trouble. You'd be smart to follow his example. Thank you for the advice. Hendricks glanced sideways at the older man. Most new inmates were shaking by now, sweating, eyes darting everywhere looking for threats. Cole walked like he was strolling through a shopping mall. You don't seem nervous, Hendricks observed. Should I be? Most guys your age, first time inside, yeah. They're usually terrified. I'm not most guys. Hendricks stopped walking. He turned to face Nathan directly, his hand resting on his baton. Let me give you some real talk, Cole. Free of charge. Marcus Reeves runs this block. He's going to test you. Today, tomorrow, whenever he feels like it. When that happens, you have 2 choices. You can fight back and end up in the infirmary, or worse. Or you can take whatever he dishes out, keep your mouth shut, and maybe, just maybe, you survive long enough to see the outside again. Nathan met his gaze steadily. Is there a third option? What? A third option. You said I have 2 choices. I'm asking if there's a third. Hendricks stared at him. No, there's no third option. Not in here. Not with Marcus. There's always a third option, Nathan said quietly. Most people just can't see it. He started walking again, leaving Hendricks standing in the corridor with an uneasy feeling growing in his gut. Something was wrong with this inmate. Something Hendricks couldn't quite identify. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't insanity. It was something else entirely. It was certainty. Nathan Cole was certain about something, and that certainty scared Hendricks more than any threat or display of violence ever could. Cell 247 was 8 feet by 10 feet of concrete and steel. 2 bunks, 1 toilet, 1 sink, a small window that let in just enough light to remind inmates of the freedom they'd lost. David Chen was lying on the top bunk when Nathan entered. He was a small man, Asian American with wire-rimmed glasses and the cautious eyes of someone who had learned to survive by being invisible. You must be the new guy, David said without getting up. Nathan Cole, right-armed robbery. That's what the file says. David sat up, swinging his legs over the edge of the bunk. You asked about Marcus Reeves during processing, by name, within your first hour here. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Word travels fast. Word is the only currency that matters in here. Information keeps you alive. Ignorance gets you killed. David climbed down and extended his hand. David Chen, former accountant, made the mistake of cooking books for people who turned out to be very connected to very dangerous organizations. 8 years down, 7 to go. Nathan shook his hand. Nathan Cole, armed robbery, 10 years. Armed robbery. David's eyes narrowed behind his glasses. You don't look like a robber. What does a robber look like, Fwa? Younger, hungrier, more desperate. David returned to his bunk and sat on the edge. You look like something else entirely. I just can't figure out what. Maybe I'm just old. No, that's not it. David studied him with the analytical precision of a man who had spent his life finding patterns in numbers. I've had 3 cellmates in 8 years. The first one challenged Marcus Reeves directly. He spent 6 months in the medical wing, then got transferred to a psychiatric facility. Last I heard, he still can't feed himself. The second one tried to join Marcus's crew, thought he could work his way up. They found him hanging in the shower. Officially ruled a suicide, but everyone knew better. The third one was smart. Kept his head down, did his time, got paroled, never looked back. And you, David smiled grimly. I'm useful. I do accounting for the various enterprises that operate inside these walls. I track debts. I calculate interest. I make sure the books balance. It's not dignified work, but it keeps me breathing. You work for Marcus Reeves? I work for everyone. Neutrality is my protection. If I only served one faction, the others would kill me to disrupt their enemies' operations. But if I serve everyone equally, he spread his hands, then killing me hurts everyone and no one wants that. Nathan nodded slowly. Smart. Survival? Smart. There's a difference between being smart and being alive. Plenty of smart men in the cemetery. David's expression grew serious. Look, I don't know what your game is. Maybe you're just unlucky. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe you're something else entirely. But I'm going to give you the same advice everyone else has probably given you today. Don't challenge Marcus Reeves. Don't resist him. Don't even look at him the wrong way. Give him whatever he wants, and eventually he'll get bored and move on to someone else. And if I don't, David stared at him, then I'll be requesting a new cellmate by the end of the week. Nathan turned away and began arranging his meager possessions on the lower bunk. 3 sets of clothes, basic toiletries, a single photograph that the guards had allowed him to keep. David craned his neck to see the picture. A woman and a young girl smiling at the camera. The woman had Nathan's eyes. Family, David asked. Nathan's hand paused over the photograph. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Something that looked almost like pain. They were, he said quietly, they died 12 years ago. I'm sorry. Nathan placed the photograph face down on his bunk. Don't be. The people responsible are sorry, or they will be. Before David could ask what that meant, a bell rang through the cell block. Lunch, David said, climbing down from his bunk. Cafeteria opens in 10 minutes. A word of advice, eat fast, keep your head down, and don't sit at any table that looks claimed. The center tables belong to Marcus and his crew. The tables by the east wall are Latin Kings. West wall is Aryan Brotherhood. North wall is Black Disciples. Everywhere else is neutral ground, but neutral doesn't mean safe. It just means no one's killed anyone there recently. Nathan followed him toward the cell door. Where do you sit? Corner table, near the emergency exit. Best sightlines, fastest escape route if things go bad. David glanced back at him. You can sit with me if you want, just don't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that attracts attention. Nathan almost smiled. I'll do my best. The cafeteria was chaos organized into territories. 300 inmates packed into a space designed for 200 arranged, and according to racial lines, gang affiliations in the complex hierarchy of prison politics. Nathan collected his tray, the gray meat and watery vegetables that passed for nutrition, and scanned the room with methodical precision. He identified Marcus Reeves immediately. The man was impossible to miss. 6'5", 275 pounds of muscle built through 15 years of prison workouts. His face looked like it had been assembled from spare parts after a car wreck. Scars crossing scars. A nose that had been broken so many times it sat crooked on his face. And teeth that had been filed to points, a display of savagery that served no purpose except intimidation. Marcus sat at the center table, flanked by his crew. Danny Torres on his right, thin and quick with the dead eyes of a born killer. Big Earl Washington on his left, a mountain of muscle, whose hands looked capable of crushing bowling balls. Behind them stood skinny Pete Kowalski, all nervous energy and twitching movements, a hyena waiting for scraps. Nathan walked past their table without making eye contact. The hell is that? Marcus said loud enough for everyone to hear. New fish doesn't even pay respects. Didn't anyone tell him the rules? Laughter from his crew, nervous silence from everyone else. Nathan found David's corner table and sat down. He He began eating with mechanical precision, cutting his meat into small squares, chewing each bite thoroughly. David sat across from him, his face pale. He noticed you. Oh God, he noticed you. That's not good. That's really not good. Eat your food, David. You don't understand. When Marcus notices someone on their first day, it means, I know what it means. David stared at him. You want this. You actually want him to come over here. Are you insane? Nathan took another bite, chewed, swallowed. Tell me about his crew, the thin one with the dead eyes. Danny Torres. They call him Switchblade. He's killed at least 4 men in here with improvised weapons, maybe more. He's fast, vicious, and completely loyal to Marcus. The big one, Earl Washington. Big Earl, former enforcer for a biker gang. He's slow but incredibly strong. I watched him beat a man to death with a lunch tray during the riot of 2019. Took him less than 2 minutes. The twitchy one, Pete Kowalski, Skinny Pete. He's the unpredictable one. Meth head before he came in, still finding ways to get high in here. When he's sober, he's dangerous. When he's high, he's worse. Nathan nodded, filing away each piece of information. Anyone else in the inner circle? Why do you want to know this? Curiosity. Curiosity gets people killed in here. Nathan looked up from his food. His pale gray eyes met David's with an intensity that made the accountant's blood run cold. No, Nathan said softly. Ignorance gets people killed. Curiosity is how you survive. Heavy footsteps approached. The ambient noise of the cafeteria dropped to near silence. Inmates at nearby tables suddenly found urgent reasons to relocate. David's face went white. He's coming. Oh God, he's coming. Finish your meal, David. Are you listening to me? I heard you. Finish your meal. David stared at him in disbelief, then grabbed his tray and fled toward the serving line, unwilling to be caught in whatever was about to happen. Nathan continued eating. The shadow fell across his table. Well, well, well. Marcus's voice was deep amused, dripping with cruel anticipation. The new fish thinks he's too good to show respect. Nathan didn't look up. He cut another piece of meat, chewed it, swallowed. I'm talking to you, old man. I heard you. Then look at me when I'm speaking. Nathan took another bite. I'm eating. The cafeteria went completely silent. 300 men stopped breathing. Nobody talked to Marcus Reeves like that. Nobody. Marcus's amusement curdled into anger. He slammed his palm down on the table hard enough to make Nathan's tray jump. Let me explain how this works, Fish. This is my house, my rules. Every piece of meat in this room belongs to me. Every cigarette, every favor, every breath. You want to eat? You pay me. You want to sleep safe? You pay me. You want to live long enough to see tomorrow. He leaned down until his face was inches from Nathan's. You pay me. Nathan finally set down his fork. He turned slowly to face the man looming over him. And if I don't want to pay, Marcus grinned, showing those filed teeth, then I take what I want anyway, and I break whatever's left. I see. Do you? Because I don't think you understand your situation, old man. You're alone in here. No friends, no protection, no gang, just one old fish surrounded by sharks. His hand shot out, grabbing Nathan's collar. And I'm the biggest shark in this ocean. Nathan looked at the hand gripping his jumpsuit. Then he looked up at Marcus's face. You shouldn't have touched me, he said calmly. Marcus laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound that echoed through the silent cafeteria. Shouldn't have touched you, old man. I'm about to do a lot more than touch you. With one violent motion, he lifted Nathan off the bench and slammed him onto the table. The impact was tremendous. Metal legs screeched across concrete. Trays went flying. Soup splashed everywhere. Someone's fork stabbed into a hand, and the scream was swallowed by laughter for Marcus's crew. Nathan lay on his back, surrounded by spilled food, staring up at the man who had just manhandled him like a rag doll. Marcus pressed his forearm against Nathan's throat, applying pressure. Any last words, Fish? Any begging you want to do before I rearrange your face? Nathan should have been terrified. Any rational person would have been. Instead, he laughed. It was a quiet laugh, almost gentle, but it stopped Marcus cold. What the hell is so funny, You are, Nathan said, his voice steady despite the pressure on his windpipe. You're funny, Marcus. You really think you're the predator here? I am the predator. I've killed more men than you've met. No. Nathan's eyes locked onto Marcus's with an intensity that made the bigger man's stomach clench. You've killed weak men, scared men, men who couldn't fight back. That's not being a predator, that's being a scavenger, a hyena feeding on scraps. Marcus's face twisted with rage. "I'm going to kill you for that." "No, you're not." Nathan smiled. "You're going to run, and you're going to remember this moment for the rest of your miserable life as the day you made the biggest mistake you've ever made." "Mistake? What mistake?" "You touched me," Nathan said. "That was your mistake." What happened next would become legend. Nathan's right hand shot upward faster than the human eye could track. He didn't grab Marcus's arm. He struck a precise point on the inside of the elbow, targeting the ulnar nerve with surgical accuracy. Marcus's grip went slack instantly. His arm simply stopped working, the nerve signal disrupted by a strike that most people didn't even know was possible. Before the bigger man could react, Nathan's body twisted off the table in a fluid motion that seemed to defy physics. He hooked his leg around Marcus's knee, grabbed the front of his jumpsuit, and redirected all of that massive weight into a throw that used Marcus's own momentum against him. 275 pounds of muscle went airborne. Marcus Reeves, the king of Irongate, flew through the air and crashed into the serving line with a sound like a car wreck. Metal buckled. Steam erupted from shattered food warmers. His body left a dent in the stainless steel counter before sliding to the floor in a heap. He didn't move. The silence was absolute. 300 inmates sat frozen, their minds unable to process what they had just witnessed. Marcus Reeves, the man who had ruled this prison through pure terror for 15 years, had been taken down in less than 3 seconds. By an old man. Danny Torres recovered first. His hand was already moving toward his waistband, pulling out a sharpened toothbrush handle that glinted under the fluorescent lights. "You're dead," he snarled, advancing on Nathan. "You're dead, old man." Nathan turned to face him with mechanical precision. His head tilted slightly to the right, like a predator considering prey. "That's not a knife," he said, conversationally, almost friendly. "Would you like to see what a real knife can do?" Danny lunged. He was fast prison. Fast, the kind of quick that came from years of survival in environments where hesitation meant death. But Nathan was faster. His left hand caught Danny's wrist mid-strike. His right twisted at a precise angle, and the sound of cracking bone echoed through the cafeteria like a gunshot. The sharpened toothbrush clattered to the floor. Danny followed, screaming, as Nathan applied pressure to specific nerve clusters that transformed pain into complete paralysis. "Median nerve compression," Nathan explained calmly, as if teaching a medical class. "Temporary paralysis. You'll regain feeling in 6 to 8 hours. The wrist, unfortunately, will take longer to heal." He released Danny, who crumpled to the floor, whimpering and cradling his shattered arm. Big Earl charged next. 300 pounds of muscle moving with surprising speed, his massive fists already swinging. Nathan didn't retreat. He stepped forward into the attack, his movements fluid and economical. His left hand deflected Earl's punch, redirecting it harmlessly past his head. His right drove upward in a short, sharp strike that connected with the solar plexus. The sound was like a sledgehammer hitting a side of beef. Big Earl's eyes bulged. His face turned purple. Every molecule of air was driven from his lungs in a single explosive instant. He folded over Nathan's arm and collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath that wouldn't come. "Diaphragmatic shock," Nathan said, lowering the wheezing giant to the floor with surprising gentleness. "Breathe slowly through your nose. The paralysis will pass in a few minutes. Don't try to speak until then." Skinny Pete was the last of Marcus's inner circle still standing. He looked at his fallen brothers. He looked at Nathan. He looked at the door. He ran. He made it 3 steps before Nathan's hand closed around the back of his collar and yanked him backward off his feet. Pete hit the floor hard, the wind knocked out of him, and found himself staring up into those pale gray eyes. "Spread the word," Nathan said quietly. "I don't want trouble. I just want to do my time in peace, but if anyone else wants to test me—" He released Pete's collar and stepped back. "They're welcome to try." He turned and walked back to his table, sat down, and resumed eating his meal as if nothing had happened. The food was cold now, but he didn't seem to mind. 300 inmates stared at him in absolute silence. And in the corner pressed against the wall, David Chen realized he had stopped breathing. He forced himself to inhale, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He had asked Nathan what he was. Now he knew. Nathan Cole was death wearing an orange jumpsuit, and David Chen had been assigned to share a cell with him. The guards finally responded 7 minutes after the fight ended. Officer Hendricks was first through the door, his baton drawn, 2 other guards flanking him. They stopped short when they saw the carnage. Marcus Reeves was conscious now, but clearly concussed, his crew helping him stumble toward the medical station. Danny Torres was being carried on an improvised stretcher, still whimpering, his wrist bent at an impossible angle. Big Earl was sitting against the wall, breathing slowly, unable to stand, and Nathan Cole was eating lunch. Hendricks approached the table slowly, his hand still on his weapon. "Cole, on your feet, hands behind your back." Nathan set down his fork, wiped his mouth with a paper napkin, and stood smoothly. He placed his hands behind his back without being asked. "Self-defense," he said calmly. "They attacked me. I defended myself." "Self-defense?" Hendricks shook his head in disbelief. "You put 4 men in the infirmary. That's not self-defense. That's... I don't even know what that is." "Efficiency." Hendricks stared at him. "Who the hell are you, Cole? Just a man doing his time." "Right." Hendricks applied the cuffs with practiced motions. "Sure you are. Let's go. Warden wants to see you immediately." As they walked out of the cafeteria, Nathan passed the serving line where Marcus was being examined by medical staff. Their eyes met. Marcus Reeves had been the most feared man in Irongate for 15 years. He had killed without hesitation, ruled through terror, built an empire on broken bones and shattered dreams. But when he looked into Nathan Cole's eyes, he felt something he hadn't felt since he was a child. Fear. Pure primal paralyzing fear, and he knew with absolute certainty that his reign was over. Warden Patricia Thornton had watched the security footage 4 times. Each time she noticed something new, something that made her more uneasy. The precision, the economy of movement, the complete absence of hesitation. This wasn't prison fighting. This wasn't even street fighting. This was something else entirely. "Run his prints again," she ordered Chief Deputy Simmons, who stood nervously by her desk. "And contact the FBI liaison office. I want a full background check, everything they have." "FBI," Simmons shifted uncomfortably. "You really think that's necessary? He's just an inmate who got lucky." "Lucky?" Thornton rewound the footage and paused it at the exact moment Nathan threw Marcus. "Look at this. He uses Marcus's own weight against him. Perfect leverage. Perfect timing. He knew exactly where to strike, exactly how much force to apply, exactly how to neutralize the threat without causing permanent damage." She turned to face her deputy. "That's not luck, Richard. That's training. Military training. Maybe special forces. Maybe something worse." "Worse?" Thornton leaned back in her chair, her mind racing through possibilities she didn't like. She had been running Irongate for 8 years. In that time, she had built something profitable, something organized. The gangs operated with her tacit approval because they kept order and generated revenue. Drugs flowed through the prison because she allowed it, taking her cut at every stage. Protection rackets operated because she looked the other way. It was corrupt. It was criminal. And it had made her very, very wealthy. Now someone had dropped a weapon into her carefully controlled environment, and she had no idea whose finger was on the trigger. "Find out who he really is," she said finally, "and find out who sent him." "Sent him? You think he's here on purpose?" "I think nothing happens by accident, Richard. Not in my prison." She turned back to the frozen image on her screen. Nathan Cole's face stared back at her, calm and inscrutable. "Someone put this man here for a reason. I want to know what that reason is before it destroys everything we've built." "Dick to me." The door opened and a guard escorted Nathan Cole into the office. Thornton studied him carefully. Gray hair cut military short. Pale eyes that seemed to catalog everything in the room within seconds. A posture that spoke of discipline, of training, of something that didn't belong in an orange jumpsuit. "Mr. Cole," she said coolly, "please sit down." Nathan sat. "You've had quite an eventful first day." "I prefer quiet." "Then perhaps you shouldn't have hospitalized 4 of my inmates within 6 hours of arriving." "They attacked me. I defended myself." Thornton smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Of course you did. Self-defense. The oldest excuse in the book." She leaned forward. "But here's what I don't understand, Mr. Cole. Marcus Reeves has been running Cell Block B for 15 years. 15 years. In that time, he's faced down gang leaders, cartel enforcers, professional killers. None of them gave him more than a moment's trouble." She paused. "And then you walk in an armed robber from Nowhere Special and you take him down in less than 5 seconds. How do you explain that?" Nathan met her gaze steadily. "I got lucky." "Lucky?" Thornton laughed softly. "Deputy Simmons here thinks you got lucky too. But I don't believe in luck, Mr. Cole. I believe in patterns. And the pattern I'm seeing here doesn't fit the story you're telling." "What pattern is that?" "The pattern of a man with extensive training pretending to be something he's not." She stood and walked around her desk, stopping directly in front of him. "So let me ask you directly, who are you really, and why are you in my prison?" Nathan's expression didn't change. "I'm Nathan Cole. I robbed a jewelry store in Houston. The owner had a gun. Things escalated. Now I'm serving 10 years for armed robbery and aggravated assault. It's all in my file." "Yes, it is. A very complete file. Almost too complete." She walked back to her desk and picked up a folder. Birth certificate, social security records, employment history, criminal record, everything checks out perfectly. Not a single gap, not a single inconsistency. She dropped the folder. Do you know how rare that is, Mr. Cole? Most people's records have gaps, inconsistencies, human messiness, but yours? She shook her head. Yours is perfect, like it was constructed by professionals. For just a moment, something flickered across Nathan's face. A micro-expression that disappeared before Thornton could identify it. I'm just careful, he said. I'm sure you are. Thornton returned to her seat. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Cole. I'm going to put you in solitary confinement for 48 hours. Standard procedure for inmates involved in violent incidents. During that time, I'm going to make some phone calls, ask some questions, and when those 48 hours are up, I'm going to decide what to do with you. She smiled coldly. I suggest you use that time to think about whether there's anything you want to tell me, because if I find out you've been lying to me... She left the threat hanging. Nathan stood. Am I dismissed? For now? She nodded to Simmons. Take him to isolation. And Richard? Yes, ma'am? Double the guard on his cell. I don't want any surprises. As Nathan was let out, he allowed himself a small smile that neither the warden nor her deputy could see. Phase 1 was complete. He had established his presence, demonstrated his capabilities, attracted the attention of the warden herself. Now he just had to wait. The corruption he had been sent to expose would reveal itself eventually. It always did. And when it did, Nathan Cole would be ready. He had 10 years to complete his mission. He planned to finish it in 6 months. Cut. In her cell in cell block B, surrounded by whispered rumors about the new inmate who had destroyed Marcus Reeves, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the medical officer who had been on duty the night the pharmaceuticals disappeared, felt a cold hand of fear close around her heart. She had heard the stories spreading through the prison like wildfire. The old man with pale eyes who moved like death itself. The newcomer who had dismantled the most powerful gang in Irongate without breaking a sweat. She pulled out a contraband cell phone and dialed a number she had hoped never to use again. We have a problem, she whispered when the line connected. Someone new just arrived, someone different. I think he might be here for us. The voice on the other end was calm, controlled, familiar. Don't worry, it said. I'll take care of it. The line went dead. And somewhere in the depths of Irongate Maximum Security Prison, the wheels of a conspiracy began to turn unaware that the man they feared was already 10 steps ahead of them. 47 hours into solitary confinement, Nathan Cole heard footsteps approaching his cell. 2 sets, one heavy, one lighter, guard and someone else. The door opened. David Chen stood in the corridor clutching a stack of papers to his chest like a shield. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly. You have a visitor, the guard announced. 15 minutes. David stepped inside and the door slammed shut behind him. For a long moment, neither man spoke. David stared at Nathan, who sat on the concrete bench with his back against the wall, looking exactly as calm as he had in the cafeteria before he'd dismantled 4 men. You're insane, David finally said. You know that, right? Completely certifiably insane. Hello, David. Don't hello me. Do you have any idea what's happening out there? The entire prison is at war. Marcus is in the medical wing with a fractured skull, and his crew is falling apart. The Aryan Brotherhood is making moves on his territory. The Latin Kings are positioning themselves. The Black Disciples are stockpiling weapons. David's voice rose with each sentence. And everyone is talking about you. The old man who broke the unbreakable. The ghost who came out of nowhere. Nathan nodded slowly. Good. Good? How is any of this good? Chaos creates opportunity. David stared at him. Opportunity for what? To get killed, because that's what's going to happen when you get out of here. Every gang in Irongate wants you dead or recruited. There's no middle ground. Nathan stood and walked to the small window, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Tell me about Vincent Castellano. The question caught David off guard. Vincent, why? Because you mentioned him yesterday. You said you do accounting for various enterprises. Vincent runs the gambling and currency exchange. I want to know more about him. David hesitated. Vincent is different. He's not like the others. He was a Wall Street guy before he came in. Insider trading, securities fraud, that kind of thing. White-collar crime. But he's smart, really smart, and he's built something inside these walls that the gangs respect. What kind of something? A neutral zone. Vincent doesn't deal in violence. He deals in information and services. He tracks debts, manages disputes, facilitates transactions between factions that would otherwise kill each other on sight. He's the only reason this place doesn't explode into open warfare every other week. Nathan turned from the window. I want to meet him. That's not how it works. Vincent doesn't meet with people. People request audiences with Vincent, and he decides whether they're worth his time. Then request an audience. David laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want me to ask Vincent Castellano, the most connected man in Iron Gate, to meet with the guy who just destroyed the biggest gang in the prison, the guy everyone thinks is either a government assassin or a complete psychopath? Yes. He'll say no. He won't. How do you know? Nathan's pale eyes met David's with an intensity that made the accountant take an involuntary step backward. Because Vincent is smart enough to recognize opportunity when it presents itself, and right now I'm the biggest opportunity in this prison. David shook his head slowly. Who are you, Nathan, really? Because armed robbery doesn't explain what I saw in that cafeteria. Armed robbery doesn't explain how you knew exactly where to strike, exactly how much force to use. Armed robbery doesn't explain why the warden is making calls to federal agencies trying to figure out your background. She's making calls, the whole prison knows. Her deputy has been on the phone for 2 days straight. They're scared of you, Nathan. The administration is scared of a single inmate. Do you understand how unprecedented that is? Nathan allowed himself a small smile. Set up the meeting with Vincent. Tell him I have a proposition that will make him the most powerful man in Iron Gate. Tell him I know about the pharmaceutical theft and I know who was really behind it. David's face went white. How could you possibly know about that? I pay attention. The pharmaceutical theft was 3 weeks ago. You've been here less than 3 days. And in those 3 days, I've heard guards talking in corridors. I've watched which inmates get special treatment from medical staff. I've noticed which cells never get searched. Nathan stepped closer to David. This prison leaks information like a broken pipe. You just have to know where to look. David was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I'll talk to Vincent, but if this gets me killed, it won't. How can you be sure? Because you're more useful alive, and in a place like this, usefulness is the best protection there is. The guard's voice came through the door. 2 minutes. David moved toward the exit, then stopped. One more thing. Tommy Castellano, the guy whose wrist you shattered, he's Vincent's cousin. Not close, but family. Vincent might hold that against you. He might, Nathan agreed, or he might appreciate that I broke Tommy's wrist instead of his neck. I could have killed him. I chose not to. That tells Vincent something about me. What does it tell him? That I'm not an animal, that I can be reasoned with, that I'm someone worth talking to. The door opened. David stepped out without another word, but his mind was racing with questions he was afraid to ask. Nathan returned to his concrete bench and closed his eyes. Phase 2 was about to begin. The next morning, 2 guards arrived to escort Nathan back to general population. Neither of them met his eyes. Warden's cleared you, one of them muttered. Says it was self-defense, no additional charges. That's generous of her. Don't push your luck, Cole. Half this prison wants you dead. The other half wants to recruit you. Either way, you've got a target on your back the size of Texas. Nathan said nothing. He walked between them through corridors that fell silent as he passed. Inmates pressed against walls to give him space. Guards watched him with a mixture of fear and fascination. Word had spread. The legend had grown. By the time Nathan reached cell block B, he could feel hundreds of eyes tracking his every movement. The weight of attention was almost physical, pressing against him from every direction. David was waiting in their cell, pacing nervously. Vincent agreed, he said the moment Nathan walked through the door. Tonight, recreation hour. He wants to meet you in the laundry room. Good. Nathan, listen to me. Vincent is not someone you can manipulate. He's survived in here for 12 years by being smarter than everyone else. He'll see through any game you're trying to play. I'm not playing a game. Then what are you doing? Nathan sat on his bunk and looked at his cellmate with something that might have been respect. I'm building something, David, something that's going to change this prison forever, and I need people I can trust to help me build it. Trust? David laughed bitterly. There's no trust in here. There's only leverage and fear. Maybe that's true for everyone else, but you're different. How am I different? You've survived 8 years by being useful and invisible. You've worked for every faction without betraying any of them. You've built a reputation for reliability in a place where betrayal is the norm. Nathan's pale eyes held David's gaze. That takes more than intelligence. That takes integrity. David was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to be my eyes and ears. I want you to tell me everything that happens in this prison, every transaction, every alliance, every grudge. I want you to help me understand the currents that flow beneath the surface. And in return, protection, real protection, not the kind you buy with favors and usefulness, the kind that comes from being associated with someone nobody wants to challenge." David considered this. "You're serious. I'm always serious. And if I say no, then I'll find someone else. But I'd rather it be you." The bell rang for afternoon work detail. David moved toward the door, then stopped. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "That's all I ask." 4 hours later, Nathan walked into the laundry room. Vincent Castellano was waiting for him seated on a folding chair between two industrial washing machines. He was smaller than Nathan had expected, maybe 5'8", with thinning hair and wire-rimmed glasses that made him look more like a college professor than a prison power broker. 2 bodyguards flanked him, men whose bulk and scarred faces marked them as serious muscle, but Vincent waved them back as Nathan approached. "Leave us." "Boss, this guy?" "I said leave us." The bodyguards exchanged uncertain glances, then retreated to the far side of the room, close enough to respond if needed, far enough to give the illusion of privacy. Vincent studied Nathan with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You're older than I expected." "Age is relative." "True enough. Please sit." He gestured to another folding chair across from him. "I understand you wanted to discuss something with me." Nathan sat. "I understand you lost something valuable 3 weeks ago. Pharmaceuticals from the medical wing. A significant investment that disappeared without a trace." Only Vincent's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "You're well informed for someone who's been here less than a week." "Information is the most valuable currency in this place. Your words, I believe." "You've been talking to David." "David talks to everyone. That's what makes him useful." Vincent smiled thinly. "You're direct. I appreciate that. Most people in here waste time with posturing and threats. It's refreshing to meet someone who gets straight to business." "I don't have time for games, neither do you." "No, I don't." Vincent leaned forward. "So tell me, Mr. Cole, what do you know about my missing pharmaceuticals, and what do you want in exchange for that information?" "I know that the official story is wrong. Everyone thinks it was one of the gangs making a power play. The Latin Kings blamed the Black Disciples. The Black Disciples blamed the Aryan Brotherhood. The Brotherhood blamed everyone, but none of them took it." "And you know who did?" "I have a strong suspicion." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "Share it." "Chief Deputy Simmons was in the medical wing that night, unscheduled. No official reason for his visit. He was there for 47 minutes, and when he left, he wasn't alone. A guard named Patterson accompanied him. Patterson resigned 3 days later and left the state." The silence stretched between them. "That's a significant accusation," Vincent said finally. "It's not an accusation, it's an observation. What you do with it is your business." "And what do you want in return for this observation?" Nathan met his gaze directly. "Alliance. I'm new here. I have skills that you can see are valuable, but I don't have connections. I don't have infrastructure. I don't have the network of relationships that makes things happen inside these walls." "You want to work for me?" "No, I want to work with you. There's a difference." Vincent laughed softly. "You have confidence, I'll give you that. Most men in your position would be begging for protection. Instead, you're negotiating as if you have leverage. I do have leverage. I just gave you information that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. Information that points to corruption at the highest level of this prison's administration. That's not nothing." "No, it's not." Vincent stood and walked slowly around the small space, his hands clasped behind his back. "But let me tell you something about leverage, Mr. Cole. Leverage only works if you're willing to use it, and information about corrupt administrators is dangerous to possess. It makes you a target. It makes you someone that powerful people want to silence." "I'm aware of the risks." "Are you?" "Because the moment you start asking questions about Deputy Simmons, the moment you start making noise about administrative corruption, you become a problem, and problems in prison have a way of disappearing." Nathan smiled. "Nathan. That's why I'm telling you instead of acting alone. You have the network to pursue this information safely. I have the skills to protect the people who help me. Together, we're stronger than either of us would be apart." Vincent stopped pacing and studied Nathan with renewed interest. "You think Deputy Simmons stole the pharmaceuticals for personal profit?" I think Deputy Simmons is a small piece of a much larger puzzle. The pharmaceutical theft was worth maybe $200,000 on the street. That's significant, but it's not fortune. Someone like Simmons wouldn't risk his career for that kind of money unless he was already compromised, unless he was already part of something bigger. Something bigger. I've been watching the flow of contraband through this prison. Drugs, weapons, information, all of it moves with too much efficiency, too much organization. The gangs think they run the black market, but they're just middle management. Someone above them is coordinating everything, taking a cut at every stage, making sure the system runs smoothly. Vincent's face had gone very still. That's a dangerous theory. It's not a theory, it's pattern recognition, and the patterns all point in one direction. Which direction? Nathan leaned forward. Up, all the way to the warden's office. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Patricia Thornton, Vincent said slowly, you think the warden herself is running the corruption in this prison? I think she's at the center of a network that's been operating for years. I think she takes money from the gangs in exchange for looking the other way. I think she facilitates drug shipments, weapon smuggling, and information sales. And I think your pharmaceutical theft was an inside job that went wrong somehow, which is why you never got your product back. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. If what you're saying is true, it's true. Bistayat pa rin. Then we're both in much more danger than I realized. He sat back down, his expression troubled. The gangs I can handle. Other inmates I can negotiate with. But the administration, if Thornton is as dirty as you're suggesting, she has the power to make anyone in this prison disappear. Transfer to a black site, accident in the shower, suicide in solitary. The options are endless. Which is exactly why she needs to be exposed. Vincent stared at him. Exposed? You want to take down a sitting warden who controls every aspect of this facility. Are you suicidal? I'm determined. There's a fine line between determined and dead. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Let me ask you something, Vincent. How long do you have left on your sentence? 8 years. And in those 8 years, how much money do you think the warden is going to extract from your operations? How many times is she going to shake you down, threaten you, take what's yours because she can... Vincent's jaw tightened. I factored those costs into my business model. What if you didn't have to? What if the playing field was leveled? What if the gangs could operate without paying tribute to a corrupt administration? What if the power in this prison belonged to the inmates instead of the people who lock them up? You're talking about revolution. I'm talking about change. Calculated strategic change that benefits everyone except the people who've been exploiting this system for years. Vincent was silent for a long time. The washing machines hummed around them, and his bodyguards shifted nervously in the background. Tommy Haas, Vincent said finally. My cousin, you broke his wrist. Yes. Why didn't you kill him? You could have. I saw the footage. You had him completely at your mercy. Nathan chose his words carefully. Because Tommy isn't evil. He's loyal to the wrong people, but that's not a death sentence. I hurt him enough to stop him no more. When he heals, he'll have a choice to make about what kind of man he wants to be. And if he chooses to come after you again, then I'll respond appropriately. Vincent nodded slowly. You know what I find most interesting about you, Mr. Cole? It's not your skills. It's not your intelligence. It's your restraint. In a place where everyone is trying to prove how dangerous they are, you're proving something different. What's that? Control. Complete, absolute control over yourself and your environment. That's rare. That's valuable. He extended his hand. I'll consider your proposal. Give me 48 hours. Nathan shook it. I'll be waiting. As he walked back toward his cell, Nathan allowed himself to feel a moment of satisfaction. Vincent was hooked. The seed had been planted. Now he just needed to wait for it to grow. 3 hours later, the seeds grew faster than expected. David burst into the cell, his face flushed with excitement and fear. It's happening, huh? He said breathlessly. Klaus Weber just made his move. The Aryan Brotherhood hit Marcus's crew in the yard. 4 men down. The guards didn't even try to stop it. Nathan stood immediately. Where's Marcus now? Still in medical, but his people are trapped in cell block B. The Brotherhood has the corridors blocked. It's going to be a massacre. Nathan was moving before David finished speaking. Wait, where are you going? This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Nathan walked through corridors that had descended into chaos. Inmates were scrambling for cover. Guards were retreating to secure positions. The air was thick with tension and the distant sounds of violence. He found Klaus Weber's men at the junction of corridors 7 and 8. 8 of them armed with improvised weapons blocking the path to cell block B. They saw him coming and laughed. "Look at this," one of them called out. "The old man who got lucky. You lost fish Aryan business here. Keep walking." Nathan stopped 10 feet away from them. "Let them go." "What?" "The men you have trapped in cell block B, let them go. This doesn't have to be a bloodbath." The leader of the group, a tattooed giant with swastika ink crawling up his neck, stepped forward with a sneer. "You giving us orders now, old man? You might have surprised Marcus, but you can't take 8 of us, not even you." "I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a choice." "What choice?" "Walk away now, and you walk away healthy. Stay here, and things get complicated." The giant laughed and raised his weapon, a steel pipe wrapped in electrical tape. "I'm going to enjoy this." He swung. Nathan moved. The first man went down before anyone registered what was happening. Nathan caught the pipe mid-swing, redirected the momentum, and drove his elbow into the giant's temple. The impact was devastating. 240 pounds of muscle crumpled like paper. The second man came from the right, slashing with a shank. Nathan pivoted, caught the wrist twisted. Snap! The scream was cut short as Nathan's other hand found the pressure point at the base of the skull, unconscious before he hit the floor. Third and fourth attacked together, coordination that suggested training. Nathan dropped under their swings, swept the legs of the first, drove his palm into the solar plexus of the second. Both went down, gasping. The remaining 4 hesitated. Nathan straightened, not even breathing hard. "I gave you a choice," he said calmly. "You chose wrong, but I'll give you another one. Run, now. Tell Klaus Weber that cell block B is under my protection. Tell him if he wants a war, I'll give him one." They ran. Nathan watched them go, then turned toward cell block B. The men who had been trapped. Marcus's former crew stared at him with something approaching awe. "Go back to your cells," Nathan told them. "Stay there until this blows over." "Why?" one of them asked. "Why did you help us? Marcus isn't your friend." "No, he's not. But Klaus Weber isn't going to run this prison either, not while I'm here." He walked away, leaving them staring after him. That night, Vincent Castellano sent a message through David. "He's in..." David said, his voice hushed with excitement. "Vincent wants to meet again tomorrow. He says you've proven something today. He says you might be exactly what this prison needs." Nathan nodded, unsurprised. "What else?" "Klaus Weber is furious. He's calling for your head. But the other gangs are hesitating. They saw what you did to his men. 8 against 1, and you didn't even get scratched. The Latin Kings are impressed. The Black Disciples are intrigued. Everyone's waiting to see what happens next." "Good. Let them wait." "Nathan, what's your end game here? You're making allies, but you're also making enemies. Eventually, something's going to give." Nathan looked at his cellmate with those pale gray eyes. "Do you remember what I told you about building something?" "Yes." "I'm building a coalition. The gangs have been at war with each other for decades, fighting over scraps, while the administration takes the lion's share. But if they worked together, if they stopped fighting each other and started fighting the real enemy, the administration, the corruption, the system that keeps them at each other's throats. Patricia Thornton has built an empire on their division. What happens when they stop being divided?" David was quiet for a long moment. "You're not just here for revenge, are you? You're not here because someone wronged you or because you got caught doing something stupid. You're here on purpose." Nathan didn't answer. "You're here to tear this whole thing down." Silence. David sat down on his bunk, his mind racing. "Who sent you, FBI, DOJ, someone else? The less you know, the safer you are." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give you." Nathan's voice was soft but firm. "I've told you more than I should have already. If you want to walk away from this, now is the time. I won't hold it against you." David looked at the man who had been his cellmate for less than a week. A man who had dismantled the most powerful gang in the prison. A man who had stood alone against 8 armed attackers and walked away without a scratch. A man who spoke of tearing down corrupt systems like it was just another Tuesday. "My daughter," David said quietly. "She's 16 now. I haven't seen her since she was 8. Her mother won't bring her to visit. Says prison isn't a place for a child. I've got 7 years left on my sentence. 7 years before I can hold her again." Nathan waited. "If what you're doing, if it works, could it help me? Could it get me out sooner?" "I can't promise anything." "But it's possible." "Anything's possible." David made his decision. Then I'm in. Whatever you need, whoever you need me to talk to, whatever information you need gathered, I'm in. Nathan extended his hand. David shook it. The alliance was formed. And somewhere in her office, watching grainy security footage of Nathan taking down 8 men in under 30 seconds. Warden Patricia Thornton felt a cold hand of fear close around her heart. She picked up her phone and dialed a number from memory. "We have a situation," she said when the line connected. "The new inmate, Cole. He's more than we thought. Much more." "How much more, Troy?" the voice on the other end asked. "Enough to be a problem. A serious problem." "Then eliminate the problem." "It's not that simple. He's building relationships, making alliances. If he disappears now, there will be questions. Investigation." Silence on the line. "Then we handle it differently," the voice said finally. "We don't eliminate him. We use him. Everyone has a weakness, Patricia. Find his. And if I can't, then we eliminate him anyway and deal with the consequences." The line went dead. Thornton set down the phone and stared at the frozen image on her screen. Nathan Cole's face calm and composed in the moment before he'd destroyed 8 men. "Who are you?" she whispered. "And what do you really want?" The question would haunt her for weeks, because the answer when it finally came would be far worse than anything she could have imagined. 2 weeks had passed since Nathan Cole walked into Iron Gate. 14 days that had reshaped the prison's power structure in ways that hadn't happened in decades. Vincent Castellano stood in the laundry room watching Nathan with an expression that mixed admiration with growing concern. "The Latin Kings want in," Vincent said. "Eduardo Morales sent word this morning. He wants a meeting." "When?" "Tomorrow, recreation hour. But Nathan, you need to understand something. Eduardo doesn't make alliances. In 20 years, he's never aligned with anyone outside his own people. The fact that he's reaching out means he's scared." "Good. Fear is the first step toward cooperation." Vincent shook his head slowly. "You're playing a dangerous game. The more factions you bring together, the bigger the target on your back becomes. Thornton isn't stupid. She's watching. She's waiting. Let her watch. And when she decides to stop watching," Nathan turned to face him directly, "then we'll be ready." The meeting with Eduardo Morales took place the next afternoon under the watchful eyes of 100 inmates who pretended not to notice. Eduardo was a stocky man in his 50s, with gray streaking his black hair and tattoos covering every visible inch of skin. He had run the Latin Kings for 18 years, survived 3 assassination attempts, and built an empire that stretched from the prison to the streets of Houston. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I know who you are," Eduardo said, his voice low and intense. "Or rather, I know what you are. My people on the outside did some digging. Nathan Cole doesn't exist before 2019. No birth certificate, no school records, no employment history, nothing." Nathan's expression didn't change. "And what did your people conclude from this information? That you're a ghost, government, maybe CIA, maybe something worse, planted here to do something that regular law enforcement couldn't accomplish. That's quite a theory." "It's not a theory, it's a fact." Eduardo leaned forward. "The question isn't who you are. The question is why I shouldn't have you killed right now, before you destroy everything I've built." "Because you need me." Eduardo laughed harshly. "I need you, old man. I've been running operations in this prison since before you supposedly existed. I don't need anyone." "Then why are you here?" The question hung in the air. Eduardo's jaw tightened. "Klaus Weber is making moves," Nathan continued. "The Aryan Brotherhood has been expanding for months. They're not just taking Marcus's territory. They're positioning themselves to take yours too. You've lost 3 men in the past week. Transfers that happened suddenly without explanation. Guard schedules changed to leave your people exposed. Someone's helping Weber, and we both know who that someone is. Thornton. She's been playing you against each other for years, keeping the gangs at war so she can profit from the chaos. But something's changed. She's picking a winner now, and it's not you." Eduardo was silent for a long moment. "What do you want?" "The same thing I've told everyone else. Alliance, cooperation. A united front against the people who've been exploiting us all. And in return, you get protection. Real protection. Not just from Weber, but from the administration itself. When I bring Thornton down, and I will bring her down, everyone who helped me will be remembered. Everyone who stood against me will be forgotten. You're that confident. I'm that prepared." Eduardo studied him with eyes that had seen decades of violence and betrayal. "My grandmother used to say that the most dangerous man is the one with nothing to lose. But that's not you, is it? You have something to lose. I can see it in your eyes." Nathan's expression flickered almost imperceptibly. "Everyone has something to lose." "True, but your something is personal. This isn't just a mission for you, this is revenge." The word landed like a punch. Nathan recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. Eduardo had seen the reaction. "I'll join your coalition," Eduardo said slowly. "But I want to know the truth, not the cover story, not the official mission, the real reason you're here." Nathan was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, older. 12 years ago, I had a wife and daughter, Sarah and Emma. They were everything to me. Everything." Eduardo waited. "There was an operation, classified. We were tracking a network that moved drugs, weapons, and people across international borders. The network had protection at the highest levels: government officials, law enforcement, judges. We got too close and they decided to send a message." Nathan's hands had curled into fists without him noticing. "They killed them. While I was on the other side of the world doing my job, someone walked into my home and murdered my family. Made it look like a home invasion gone wrong. Case was never solved. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted." "And this prison?" Eduardo asked quietly. "The man who ordered the hit is connected to the corruption network that runs Iron Gate. I've spent 12 years tracking the breadcrumbs, following the money, identifying the players. Thornton is one piece. Simmons is another, but there's someone above them, someone who's been running this operation for 30 years. Who? I don't know yet, but I'm close. Everything points to this prison. Someone here has the answers I need." Eduardo absorbed this information with the stillness of a man who had heard many confessions over the years. "Revenge," he said finally. "That's what drives you. Not justice, not duty. Revenge. Does it matter?" "It matters to me. Revenge makes men sloppy, emotional, unpredictable. I need to know that when the moment comes, you won't throw everything away for a chance to kill the man who hurt you." Nathan met his gaze directly. "I've waited 12 years. I can wait a little longer. The mission comes first. It always has. And after, when you find the man responsible, then I'll do what needs to be done." Eduardo nodded slowly. "Honesty. That's rare in here. That's valuable." He extended his hand. "The Latin kings are with you. But Nathan, if you betray us, if you use us and throw us away, I won't. Then we have a deal." They shook hands. The coalition had grown stronger. But somewhere in the depths of Iron Gate, the forces arrayed against Nathan were growing stronger too. 3 days later, David burst into the cell with news that changed everything. "They arrested Dr. Chen," he said breathlessly, "the medical officer who was on duty the night of the pharmaceutical theft. Guards took her this morning. She's in isolation." Nathan was on his feet immediately. Who ordered it? Thornton personally. Word is she's being charged with theft and drug trafficking. But Nathan, there's more. Dr. Michael Chen, the prison physician who's been helping us, he's disappeared too. No transfer orders. No explanation, just gone. They're cleaning house. What does that mean? It means Thornton knows someone is getting close. She's eliminating anyone who might talk anyone who has information that could hurt her. Then we need to move faster. No. Nathan's voice was sharp. We need to be smarter. If we move now, if we show our hand before we're ready, she'll crush us. She has the guards. She has the administration. She has connections outside these walls that we can't even imagine. Then what do we do? Nathan paced the small cell, his mind racing through possibilities. Dr. Jennifer Walsh. She was on duty the night of the theft. If Thornton arrested her, it means Walsh knows something dangerous enough to warrant silencing. She's in isolation. We can't get to her. I can. David stared at him. How isolation is the most secure wing in the prison. Guards everywhere. Cameras on every corner. No one gets in or out without authorization. Then I'll get authorization. From who? Nathan stopped pacing. A cold smile crossed his face. From the one person who has the power to open any door in this prison. Thornton, you're going to ask Thornton. Not ask, compel. That night, Nathan made a move that shocked everyone who witnessed it. He walked directly to the warden's office and requested a meeting. The guards didn't know how to respond. No inmate had ever requested a meeting with the warden. It simply wasn't done. But something in Nathan's eyes made them hesitate to refuse. 15 minutes later, he was standing in Patricia Thornton's office. She sat behind her desk watching him with the careful attention of a predator evaluating a threat. Mr. Cole, this is unprecedented. These are unprecedented times. Indeed they are. She gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. Tell me why you're here. Nathan sat. "I want to make a deal." "A deal with me?" "You've been trying to figure out who I am for 3 weeks. You've made calls to federal agencies. You've dug into records that don't exist. You've watched me build alliances that threaten everything you've constructed in this prison." He leaned forward. "I'm here to answer your questions." Thornton's eyes narrowed. "And what do you want in return?" "Access to Jennifer Walsh." "The medical officer, she's under investigation for serious crimes." "She's under investigation because she knows things you don't want known. Things about the pharmaceutical theft. Things about Deputy Simmons. Things about you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "That's a dangerous accusation, Mr. Cole." "It's not an accusation. It's a statement of fact. You've built a corruption network in this prison that generates millions of dollars annually. Drugs, weapons protection information, everything flows through you. The gangs think they run the black market, but they're just your employees. They pay tribute, they follow rules, and when they step out of line, you use the administration to crush them." Thornton was very still. "If what you're saying were true, which it isn't, why would you tell me this? Why would you walk into my office and make yourself a target?" "Because I have something you want." "And what is that?" "Leverage. Against the person who's really running this operation." The silence stretched between them. "Explain," Thornton said finally. "You're not at the top of this pyramid, Warden. You're management. Someone else's ownership. Someone who's been using this prison as a profit center for decades long before you took the job. Someone who has connections that reach far beyond these walls." "You're suggesting there's a higher authority." "I'm stating a fact. You know it's true. You've always known. The money that flows out of this prison doesn't just go to you. It goes up. Way up. And whoever is at the top has the power to make you disappear just as easily as you made Dr. Michael Chen disappear." Thornton's face had gone pale. "How do you know about Chen?" "I know everything, Warden. I know about the pharmaceuticals. I know about the guard rotations that conveniently leave certain areas unmonitored. I know about the transfers that silence witnesses. I know about the payments that flow to offshore accounts." Nathan's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And I know that you're scared. Not of me. Of whoever is pulling your strings." For the first time since Nathan had entered the room, Thornton looked genuinely shaken. "What do you want?" she asked. "I told you. Access to Jennifer Walsh. 1 hour. Unsupervised." "Why? Because she has information I need. Information that will help me find the person at the top of your organization. The person you're afraid of." "And if I give you this access, then I'll give you something in return. A name. The name of the federal agent who's been investigating your operation for the past 6 months. The agent who's been building a case that will destroy everything you've created." Thornton stared at him. "There's a federal investigation. There's always a federal investigation. The question is whether it succeeds or fails. Right now it's failing because the agent doesn't have enough evidence, but that could change, unless someone tips them off, unless someone gives them exactly what they need to move forward." "You're threatening me." "I'm offering you a choice. Help me find the person at the top, and I'll make sure the federal investigation goes nowhere. Fight me, and I'll personally deliver every piece of evidence they need to put you away for the rest of your life." The calculation happening behind Thornton's eyes was almost visible. 1 hour, she said finally, "but I want something more than a name. I want proof. Proof that this federal agent exists. Proof that you can do what you're promising." "You'll have it." "When?" "Tomorrow morning. On your desk. Photos, documents, everything you need to verify my claims." Thornton nodded slowly. "Then we have a deal, Mr. Cole. 1 hour with Walsh. But if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trap..." "It's not a trap, Warden. It's an opportunity for both of us." Nathan stood and walked toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. "One more thing." "Yes. The person at the top of your organization, the one you're afraid of. Do you know their name?" Thornton was quiet for a long moment. "No, I've never met them. Everything goes through intermediaries, encrypted messages, numbered accounts, but I know they exist, I know they're watching, and I know that anyone who gets too curious about their identity tends to have unfortunate accidents." "Then maybe it's time someone asked the right questions." Nathan left without waiting for a response. The next morning, true to his word, a manila envelope appeared on Thornton's desk. Inside were photographs of a man she had never seen before, along with documents that detailed an ongoing federal investigation into corruption at Iron Gate. The name on the documents was Special Agent Thomas Bradley. What Thornton didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that Special Agent Thomas Bradley had been dead for 3 years. The photographs were from his file. The documents were fabrications created by someone with access to federal databases. Nathan Cole had no intention of protecting Patricia Thornton. He was using her to get what he needed, and when he was finished, he would destroy her along with everyone else. The meeting with Jennifer Walsh took place in a small room adjacent to the isolation wing. No cameras, no guards, just 2 people and the truth that lay between them. Walsh was younger than Nathan had expected, maybe 35, with haunted eyes and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "You're him?" she said the moment she saw him. "The one who's been turning this prison upside down. I need information." "Of course you do. Everyone needs something." She laughed bitterly. "What do I get in return?" "What do you want?" "I want out of here. I want protection. I want to not end up like Dr. Chen." "What happened to Chen?" Walsh's eyes filled with tears. "They killed him. Made it look like a transfer, but I know the truth. He was asking too many questions, talking to the wrong people. They found out, and they eliminated him." "Who's they?" "I don't know names. I've never known names. Everything is compartmentalized. Thornton gives orders to Simmons. Simmons gives orders to the guards. The guards make sure the money flows. But above Thornton," she shook her head, "I always knew there was someone else, someone bigger. But I never tried to find out who." Nathan pulled a chair close and sat facing her. "Tell me about the night of the pharmaceutical theft." Walsh wiped her eyes. "It was Simmons. He came to the medical wing around 11 p.m., told me to take a break, said he'd cover for me. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't ask questions. You don't ask questions around here. When I came back an hour later, the secure cabinet had been opened. Everything was gone." "And you didn't report it?" "Report it to who, Thornton? She's part of it. The guards, they're on the payroll. I kept my mouth shut and prayed they would forget about me." Her voice broke. "But they didn't forget. When you started making waves, when you started getting close to the truth, they decided to clean house. I'm next, aren't I? I'm going to disappear, just like Chen. Not if you help me." "Help you how?" Nathan leaned forward. 3 weeks before the theft, did anything unusual happen? Any visitors, any transfers, anything that seemed out of place?" Walsh thought for a long moment. "There was one thing, a transfer from federal custody, some kind of high-value prisoner. Everything was hush-hush, no paperwork in the normal system. Thornton handled it personally." "Do you know the prisoner's name?" "No, but I saw him once. Older man, maybe 60s, silver hair. Had this look in his eyes like he was used to giving orders instead of taking them." She shuddered. "The way the guards treated him, it was like he was royalty, not a prisoner, a guest." Nathan's blood ran cold. Silver hair, 60s. Used to giving orders. It couldn't be. "Where is this prisoner now?" "I don't know. After a few days, they moved him somewhere else. Special housing, maybe. Or he might have been transferred out. I never saw him again." Nathan stood abruptly, his mind racing. "You've been helpful, Ms. Walsh. When this is over, I'll make sure you're protected." "When what is over? What are you going to do?" Nathan was already moving toward the door. "What I should have done 12 years ago." He found David in the laundry room surrounded by Vincent's people. "We need to talk," Nathan said. "Now, alone." David followed him to a quiet corner, his face tight with worry. "What happened? What did Walsh tell you?" "There's a prisoner in this facility. Special housing. No official paperwork. Transferred from federal custody 3 weeks ago." Nathan's voice was barely controlled. "Silver hair, 60s. Gets treated like royalty." David's eyes widened. "You think it's him, the person at the top?" "I don't think. I know." "How can you be sure?" Nathan closed his eyes, and for a moment David saw something he had never seen in his cellmate before. Pain. Raw, unfiltered pain that had been suppressed for years, finally breaking through the surface. "Because I know who he is," Nathan said quietly. "His name is Senator William Crawford. 30 years ago, he was a young prosecutor who discovered that the real money wasn't in putting criminals away. It was in working with them. He built an empire that spans prisons, police departments, and political offices across 6 states. A senator, he's a sitting senator. Was? He retired 2 years ago, but his network didn't retire with him. It kept growing, kept expanding, and when federal investigators got too close, he arranged to disappear into protective custody while his lawyers made the case go away." "Nathan, if this is true, if a former U.S. senator is behind everything..." "He's not just behind everything, David. He's the one who ordered the hit on my family." The words hung in the air between them. 12 years, Nathan continued, his voice hard as steel. "I've spent 12 years hunting this man. Every trail led to dead ends. Every witness disappeared before I could reach them. Every piece of evidence was destroyed or discredited, but I never stopped. I never gave up. Because I knew that someday, somewhere, he would make a mistake. And coming here was his mistake. Coming here was my opportunity. Crawford thinks he's safe. He thinks his protection reaches everywhere, even behind prison walls. But he forgot something important." "What?" Nathan's eyes opened, and David saw something in them that made him take an involuntary step backward. He forgot that some ghost don't stay buried. That night, Nathan began planning the final phase of his operation. The coalition was strong. The Latin Kings, the Black Disciples, and what remained of Marcus's crew had all pledged their support. Vincent's network provided intelligence and resources. David managed communications and logistics. But confronting a man like William Crawford required more than prison alliances. It required proof. Nathan needed evidence that would stand up in court, evidence that would connect Crawford to decades of criminal activity, evidence that would ensure the man spent whatever remained of his life behind bars, or evidence that would justify a more permanent solution. The opportunity came 4 days later. Vincent burst into the cell just after midnight, his usual composure completely shattered. "They're moving him," Vincent said breathlessly. "Crawford, tomorrow morning, federal marshals are coming to transfer him to a new location." "Where?" "I don't know, but once he's gone, he's gone. Whatever you're planning, it has to happen tonight." Nathan was already pulling on his clothes. "Wake the others, everyone we can trust. We're moving up the timeline." "Tonight, Nathan, we're not ready. We'll never be ready. That's not how this works." He grabbed Vincent by the shoulders. "This is the moment. Everything we've built, everything we've sacrificed, it all comes down to the next few hours. Are you with me?" Vincent hesitated for just a moment, then he nodded. "I'm with you." "Then let's finish this." The assault on the special housing unit began at 2:47 a.m. Eduardo's men created a distraction in Cell Block C, a controlled riot that drew most of the guards away from their posts. Vincent's network had already identified the weak points in the security system, the blind spots where cameras didn't reach the doors that could be opened with stolen keycards. Nathan moved through the chaos like a shadow, David at his side, heading toward the one place in Iron Gate that wasn't supposed to exist. They found Crawford's cell at the end of a corridor that didn't appear on any official map. 2 guards stood at the door. Private contractors, not prison staff, men who were paid to keep secrets and eliminate threats. They never saw Nathan coming. The first guard went down with a strike to the throat that silenced him before he could raise an alarm. The second reached for his weapon, but Nathan was faster, catching the man's arm and twisting it behind his back, with enough force to shatter the elbow joint. The guard dropped screaming into the hand that Nathan clamped over his mouth. "Keys," Nathan said calmly. "Now." The guard complied with trembling fingers. Nathan opened the cell door and stepped inside. William Crawford sat on a cot that was far more comfortable than anything the regular inmates enjoyed. He was exactly as Walsh had described. Silver hair, sharp eyes, the bearing of a man who had spent his life commanding others. He didn't seem surprised to see Nathan. "So," Crawford said, his voice calm and cultured, "you found me. I wondered how long it would take. You know who I am." "Of course. I've known since the moment you walked into this prison. Did you really think your cover story would fool anyone with real resources?" Crawford smiled. "Nathan Cole doesn't exist, but Nathan Walker does. Former Special Operations, lost his wife and daughter in a home invasion 12 years ago, spent the next decade hunting shadows while his career crumbled around him." Nathan's hands curled into fists. "You ordered the hit. You murdered my family." "I eliminated a threat. Your team was getting too close to my operations. The warning was meant for you, but you weren't home." Crawford shrugged. "Unfortunate collateral damage." "Collateral damage?" Nathan's voice was barely a whisper. "They were everything to me. Everything. Then you understand sacrifice. You understand that sometimes innocent people have to die for the greater good. There was nothing good about what you did. Perhaps not from your perspective, but from mine." Crawford stood slowly, showing no fear despite the danger he faced. "I built an empire that provides services to people who need them. Drugs to those who seek escape. Protection to those who feel vulnerable. Power to those who crave it. Is that evil, or is it simply capitalism applied to markets that the government refuses to acknowledge?" "You're a murderer." I'm a businessman. The murders when they happen are simply cost of doing business. He stepped closer to Nathan. Tell me, Mr. Walker, what do you intend to do now? Kill me? You could. I can see it in your eyes. You've killed before many times in service of a country that abandoned you. One more death wouldn't trouble your conscience. Nathan's hand moved toward the weapon concealed at his waist. But consider this, Crawford continued. If you kill me, you get revenge. A moment of satisfaction before the emptiness returns. But if you let me live, if you take me to the authorities with the evidence I know you've gathered, you get something more valuable. What? Justice. Real justice. A trial. Exposure. The complete destruction of everything I've built over 30 years. My network dismantled. My associates imprisoned. My legacy erased from history. Crawford's eyes gleamed. Revenge is personal. Justice is public. Which do you want more? Nathan's hand hovered over his weapon. The moment stretched into eternity, and then slowly he lowered his hand. David, he said without turning, call it in. David pulled out a phone that shouldn't have existed inside prison walls and dialed a number from memory. This is Operative 7, he said when the line connected. Package secured, requesting immediate extraction. Nathan stared at Crawford with cold fury. You're right about one thing. Killing you would be too easy. I want you to spend the rest of your life in a cell knowing that everything you built is gone. I want you to watch as your associates turn on you as your empire crumbles, as the world learns exactly what kind of monster you really are. Crawford smiled, but for the first time there was fear behind his eye. You think you've won. But my network extends far beyond what you've discovered. There are others, powerful others, and when they learn what happened here tonight... Let them come, Nathan said. I'll be waiting. Sirens began to wail in the distance. Federal marshals were coming. But not the ones Crawford had been expecting. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the narrow windows of the special housing unit, painting Crawford's face in alternating colors of alarm. Those aren't my people, Crawford said, his composure finally cracking. Who did you call? Nathan didn't answer. He grabbed Crawford by the collar and shoved him toward the door. Move. You're making a mistake. You have no idea what you've started. I know exactly what I've started. Now walk. David led the way through corridors that had erupted into chaos. The distraction Eduardo's men had created in Cell Block C had spread inmates taking advantage of the confusion to settle old scores, grab contraband, or simply run. Guards rushed past without giving them a second glance. Everyone was too focused on containing the chaos to notice three men moving purposefully through the madness. They reached the administrative wing at 3:12 a.m. Patricia Thornton was waiting for them. She stood in the center of the corridor, flanked by Deputy Simmons and 4 guards with weapons drawn. Her face was a mask of controlled fury. Mr. Cole, she said coldly, I should have known. The moment you walked into my prison, I should have known. Step aside, Warden. Step aside. She laughed bitterly. You've just orchestrated the largest security breach in this facility's history. You've assaulted guards. You've taken a federal prisoner hostage, and you expect me to simply step aside. I expect you to make a choice. Nathan pushed Crawford forward. This man is the head of the organization you've been working for. He's the one who's been giving you orders, taking your money, threatening your life. Do you want to go down with him, or do you want to help me put him away? Thornton's eyes flickered to Crawford. Something passed between them, a silent communication born of years of mutual exploitation. She can't help you, Crawford said smoothly. Patricia knows what happens to people who betray me. Her predecessor found out the hard way. Your predecessor? Nathan looked at Thornton. What happened to him? Thornton's jaw tightened. Heart attack, 3 years ago, very sudden. Very convenient, Crawford added with a thin smile. Just like the accidents that befell everyone else who thought they could walk away from our arrangement. Is that a threat, Senator? It's a statement of fact. You've built a comfortable life for yourself, Patricia. Money, power, respect. All of it flows from me. Turn against me now and everything disappears. Your accounts frozen. Your allies vanished. Your secrets exposed. Nathan watched Thornton's face as the calculation happened behind her eyes. Fear battled with self-preservation. Loyalty clashed with survival. He's lying, Nathan said quietly. He's already lost. The federal agents coming through those gates right now have been building a case against him for years. They have evidence, testimony, documentation. Crawford is finished whether you help him or not. The only question is whether you finish with him. And if I help you, then you testify. You tell them everything you know about Crawford's network. Names, accounts, operations. In exchange, you get immunity, a chance to start over. That's not your call to make. No, it's not. Nathan nodded toward the entrance where the sound of vehicles and shouting voices was growing louder. But it's theirs, and they're very motivated to bring down everyone connected to Crawford. Everyone, Warden, unless someone gives them a reason to make an exception. Thornton looked at Crawford, then at her guards, then at the approaching chaos. Stand down, she said finally. Simmons gaped at her. Ma'am, I said stand down, lower your weapons. But do it. The guards hesitated, looking between Thornton and Simmons, unsure whose orders to follow. Simmons made his choice. He raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Nathan's head. Nobody moves. This ends now. Richard, don't be stupid. Stupid? You're the one being stupid. Patricia, you think they're going to give you immunity? You think you can testify and walk away? Crawford has people everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, federal agents. Even if you survive the trial, you won't survive what comes after. Put the gun down, Richard. No, we're getting out of here. All of us. Crawford has extraction protocols, safe houses, new identities. We can disappear before anyone knows what happened. Nathan moved so fast that Simmons never saw it coming. One moment the deputy was holding a gun on them. The next he was on the ground, his weapon skittering across the floor, his arm bent at an impossible angle. Nathan stood over him, not even breathing hard. That was your one warning. There won't be another. The remaining guards dropped their weapons without being told. Thornton stared at Nathan with something approaching awe. How did you... I didn't even see you move. That's the point. Nathan retrieved Simmons' weapon and tucked it into his waistband. Now, are you going to help us, or are you going to join your deputy on the floor? I'll help. Thornton's voice was resigned. God help me, I'll help. The federal agents arrived at 3:27 a.m. They came in force, a tactical team in full gear weapons, ready expecting resistance. What they found instead was a prison in chaos and 3 men waiting calmly in the administrative wing with the most wanted man in America. The team leader, a woman in her 40s with hard eyes and a harder voice, approached Nathan with her weapon trained on his chest. Nathan Walker. That's right. I'm Special Agent Rodriguez. We've been looking for you. I know. You were supposed to maintain cover, gather evidence, report through proper channels. Instead, you started a prison war and captured the target yourself. The timeline changed. Crawford was being moved tomorrow. I had to adapt. Rodriguez holstered her weapon and shook her head slowly. 12 years you've been hunting this man. 12 years of obsession. We were starting to think you'd gone rogue. I was never rogue. I was patient. Same thing in my experience. She gestured to her team. Take Crawford into custody. Read him his rights. Make sure everything is by the book. The last thing we need is this getting thrown out on a technicality. 2 agents moved forward to take Crawford from Nathan's grip. The former senator went quietly, but his eyes never left Nathan's face. This isn't over, Crawford said softly. You think you've won, but you've only scratched the surface. My network will survive. It will adapt. And someday when you least expect it, it will find you. Let it try, Crawford smiled. It was the smile of a man who had lost a battle but believed he would win the war. Give my regards to Sarah and Emma. Oh, wait. You can't. Nathan's fist connected with Crawford's jaw before anyone could stop him. The former senator crumpled to the ground unconscious. Rodriguez grabbed Nathan's arm. Walker, stand down. Nathan allowed himself to be pulled back, his chest heaving 12 years of rage finally erupting to the surface. He deserved worse, Nathan said through gritted teeth. Maybe, but that's not your call anymore. Rodriguez signaled for the medical team. Get him up, and Walker, consider yourself debriefed. Whatever happens next, your part in this is over. Not yet. Excuse me. Nathan turned to face her. There are people in this prison who helped me. People who risked everything because I promised them protection. I'm not leaving until I know they're safe. That's not how this works. Make it work. I don't care what protocols you have to bend or what favors you have to call in. David Chen, Vincent Castellano, Eduardo Morales, Jennifer Walsh. They helped bring down Crawford. They deserve consideration. Rodriguez studied him for a long moment. You really went native in here, didn't you? Built actual relationships, made actual friends. I did what was necessary. No, you did more than that. She sighed. I'll see what I can do, but no promises. That's all I ask. The next 6 hours were a blur of interviews, debriefings, and paperwork. Nathan sat in a small room in the administrative building answering questions from a rotating cast of federal agents, prosecutors, and oversight officials. He told them everything, or almost everything. The parts about his family, about the rage that had driven him for 12 years, those he kept to himself. David was brought in around 9:00 a.m. He looked exhausted but alive, which was more than Nathan had dared to hope for. "They're offering me a deal," David said as he sat down across from Nathan. "Reduced sentence in exchange for testimony about the financial operations. I could be out in 3 years instead of 7. "That's good." "It's more than good. It's a miracle." David's eyes glistened. "My daughter, Nathan. I'm going to see my daughter again. Because of you. You did the work. I just opened the door." "No, you did more than that. You gave me something I'd lost a long time ago." David's voice broke. "Hope. You gave me hope." Nathan didn't know how to respond. Hope was something he'd stopped believing in the night Sarah and Emma died. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to find it again. "What happens to you now?" David asked. "I don't know. They'll probably want to debrief me for months. Then maybe a quiet retirement somewhere far away from anything that reminds me of the last 12 years. And after that," Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "I haven't thought that far ahead. For so long, catching Crawford was the only thing that mattered. Now that it's done," he shook his head, "I don't know who I am without the mission. Maybe it's time to find out." The door opened and Rodriguez stepped in. "Walker, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" "Says his name is Marcus Reeves." Nathan's eyebrows rose. "The man whose empire I destroyed wants to see me. Apparently, he's in custody awaiting transfer to another facility. But he asked specifically to speak with you before he goes." Rodriguez shrugged. "Your call." Nathan considered for a moment. Then he nodded. "Bring him in." Marcus Reeves looked different than he had 3 weeks ago. The swagger was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. His jaw was still wired shut from the injury Nathan had inflicted, forcing him to speak through clenched teeth. "I wanted to see you, Sukumi," Marcus said as the guards positioned him across the table from Nathan, "before they ship me off to whatever hellhole they've picked out." "Why?" "Because I needed to understand." Marcus's eyes met Nathan's. "I've been running that prison for 15 years. 15 years of being the biggest, the baddest, the most feared man inside those walls, and you walked in and took it all away in less than a day. I needed to know how. Training? Experience? Discipline?" "That's not what I mean." Marcus leaned forward as much as his restraints would allow. "I've fought trained men before, military guys, martial artists. They bleed just like everyone else. But you're different. You moved like you'd already won before the fight started, like you knew exactly what was going to happen." "I did?" "How come?" Nathan studied the man who had been his first obstacle in Iron Gate. "Because I've been doing this my whole adult life. Fighting, surviving, eliminating threats. At some point it stops being skill and becomes instinct. You don't think about what you're going to do, you just do it." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother used to say that every man has a purpose, a reason he's on this earth. I always thought my purpose was to be the king of whatever kingdom I found myself in, to dominate, to control, to make people fear me. And now? Now I'm looking at a man who destroyed everything I built without even trying, who had a real purpose, something bigger than himself, and spent 12 years pursuing it." Marcus's voice dropped. "I wasted my life, didn't I? All that strength, all that power, and what did I use it for, making other broken men even more broken?" "It's not too late to change." "Maybe not." Marcus attempted a smile that came out more like a grimace through his wired jaw. "They're sending me to a facility in Colorado. Fresh start. No gang connections. No reputation to maintain. Maybe I'll use the time to figure out what I should have been all along." "I hope you do." Marcus stood signaling to the guards that he was ready to leave, but at the door he paused. "One more thing." "Yes." "That first day, when you walked into the cafeteria and I grabbed you, I saw something in your eyes that I couldn't identify. Now I know what it was." "What?" "You were already calculating how to take me down. Not if, but how. Like I was just another obstacle in your way." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I thought I was the predator, but I was never anything more than a stepping stone." He left without waiting for a response. Nathan sat alone in the interview room processing the conversation. For so long he had seen everyone around him as either assets or obstacles, tools to be used or threats to be neutralized. But somewhere in the chaos of Iron Gate something had shifted. David had become a friend. Vincent had become an ally. Even Marcus, in his own broken way, had become something like a mirror. Maybe Rodriguez was right. Maybe he had gone native. And maybe that wasn't entirely a bad thing. The final debrief came at 4 p.m. Rodriguez sat across from Nathan with a thick folder and an expression that suggested the news she carried was complicated. Crawford is in federal custody. His lawyers are already screaming about illegal detention and violations of his civil rights, but they're fighting a losing battle. We have enough evidence to bury him 10 times over. Good. Thornton has agreed to testify in exchange for immunity on the major charges. She'll do time for the lesser offenses, probably 3 to 5 years, but she'll survive. And the others, the people who helped me, Rodriguez consulted her folder. David Chen's sentence is being reduced as promised. He'll be transferred to a minimum security facility while he awaits early release. Vincent Castellano is a more complicated case, but we're working on it. Eduardo Morales is claiming he was coerced into participating, which we both know is nonsense, but the prosecutors are willing to overlook his involvement in exchange for information about cartel connections on the outside. What about Jennifer Walsh? Already in witness protection, she had more information about Crawford's network than anyone realized. We're going to be following up on her leads for years. Nathan nodded slowly. So it's really over. The operation is over, whether it's truly finished? Rodriguez shrugged. Crawford wasn't lying when he said his network extends beyond what we've uncovered. There are still players out there, associates, allies, people who profited from his organization and won't be happy to see it dismantled. Are you telling me to watch my back? I'm telling you that men like Crawford don't build empires alone, and when those empires fall, the people who helped build them tend to scatter like cockroaches. Some will try to rebuild, others will try to take revenge. Either way, you've made enemies that will take years to fully identify. I've had enemies before. Not like these. Crawford had connections in law enforcement and government in the intelligence community, people who owed him favors, people whose careers were built on his support. Some of them are probably in this building right now trying to figure out how to contain the damage. Nathan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. What are you saying? Rodriguez leaned forward.
Prince.
I'm saying that officially you're a hero. You brought down one of the most corrupt men in American history. You'll probably get a commendation, maybe even a medal. But unofficially, there are people who want you dead, and some of those people have the resources to make it happen. Then I'll disappear. I've done it before. That's probably wise. She slid a folder across the table. New identity, new background, enough money to start over anywhere you want. Consider it payment for services rendered. Nathan opened the folder. Inside were documents, credit cards, a passport with his photograph, but a different name. Thomas Mitchell, born in Phoenix, Arizona, former construction worker, no family, no connections, a complete blank slate. What about Nathan Walker? He asked. Nathan Walker died in a prison riot at Iron Gate. Very tragic. Body was never recovered. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. It's the cleanest solution for everyone involved. The agency gets to close the file. You get to start fresh. Everyone wins. Except Crawford. Crawford will spend the rest of his life in a supermax facility assuming the trial goes the way we expect. He'll have plenty of time to think about the choices that brought him there. Nathan closed the folder. When do I leave? Tonight. We have a vehicle waiting to take you to an airfield. From there you can go anywhere you want. Just don't come back to Texas. Wasn't planning to. Rodriguez stood and extended her hand. It was an honor working with you, Walker. Even if your methods were unconventional. Nathan shook it. Thank you for trusting me, even when it looked like I'd gone off script. The best operatives always go off script. It's how they survive. She moved toward the door. One last thing. Yes. Your wife and daughter, Sarah and Emma, we found some of their belongings in Crawford's personal safe. Photographs mostly. He kept them as trophies. Her voice softened. I'll make sure they're returned to you before you leave. Nathan couldn't speak. The thought that Crawford had kept photographs of his murdered family like souvenirs made something hot and toxic rise in his chest. Thank you, he finally managed. It's the least we can do. She left. Nathan sat alone in the room staring at the folder that contained his surprise will client's new life. Thomas Mitchell, a man with no past, no pain, no ghosts. But Nathan knew the truth. The past never really disappeared. It just changed form. Became scars instead of wounds. Memories instead of nightmares. Sarah and Emma would never truly be gone. They lived in his heart in the choices he made and the justice he had finally delivered on their behalf. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The photographs arrived an hour later. A young agent barely out of training brought them in a sealed envelope and left quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the intimacy of what he was delivering. Nathan opened the envelope with trembling hands. There were 6 photographs inside. Sarah at their wedding, beautiful in white, laughing at something he had said. Emma at her 5th birthday party, face covered in chocolate cake eyes, bright with joy. The 3 of them at the beach, waves crashing behind them, not a care in the world, and 3 more from the day before they died. Sarah in the kitchen cooking dinner. Emma playing in the backyard. A family portrait they had taken at a local studio meant to be Christmas gifts for relatives. Nathan stared at the images, tears streaming down his face for the first time in 12 years. He had spent so long being angry, so long hunting Crawford, so long turning himself into a weapon because weapons didn't feel pain, but he felt it now. All of it. Every moment of grief he had suppressed, every tear he had refused to shed, every scream he had swallowed in the darkness of sleepless nights. It overwhelmed him. He sat in that small room and wept for everything he had lost, everything he had become, everything he had sacrificed in the name of justice. He wept until there was nothing left. And then slowly something unexpected happened. The weight that had been crushing his chest for 12 years began to lift. The constant pressure of rage and grief that had defined his existence started to ease, not disappear, but transform into something he could carry instead of something that carried him. He looked at the photograph of his family and felt for the first time something other than pain. He felt gratitude. Gratitude for the years they had shared. For the love they had given him. For the memories that would live in his heart forever. Sarah and Emma were gone. Nothing would ever change that. But they had existed. They had loved him. They had made his life worth living. And Crawford, the man who had taken them from him, would spend the rest of his days paying for that crime. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Nathan carefully placed the photographs in the folder with his new identity documents. Thomas Mitchell would carry them with him wherever he went, a reminder of who he had been and who he still was underneath the new name and the fresh start. At 8:00 p.m., a guard came to escort him to the waiting vehicle. As Nathan walked through the corridors of Iron Gate one last time, he passed inmates who stared at him with a mixture of awe and respect. Word had spread about what he had done. The man who had dismantled Marcus Reeves. The man who had exposed the corruption that had exploited them for years. The man who had walked into their world and changed it forever. He reached the main entrance and stopped. David was waiting there already in the custody of federal marshals who would transport him to his new facility. "I heard you're leaving," David said. "New identity, clean slate. Will I ever see you again?" Nathan considered the question. "Probably not. The man you knew doesn't exist anymore. Neither does Nathan Cole or Nathan Walker. They're all gone." "Then who are you now?" Nathan smiled, the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in longer than he could remember. "I'm still figuring that out." "Well, whoever you turn out to be, I hope he finds peace." David's voice caught. "Thank you, Nathan, for everything. Thank you for trusting me when you had no reason to. I had every reason. You were the first person in 8 years who looked at me like I was worth something, like I wasn't just another convict serving time." David blinked back tears. "That meant more than you'll ever know." The guard signaled that it was time to go. Nathan extended his hand. David shook it firmly. "Take care of yourself, David, and take care of that daughter of yours." "I will, I promise." They released hands. Nathan walked through the doors of Iron Gate and into the cool Texas night. A black SUV waited in the parking lot, engine running, headlights cutting through the darkness. He climbed in and closed the door. "Where to?" the driver asked. Nathan thought about it. He could go anywhere. Be anyone, start fresh in a place where no one knew his name or his history. But there was one more thing he needed to do first. "Dallas," he said, "there's a cemetery I need to visit." The driver nodded and pulled out of the parking lot. Behind them, Iron Gate Maximum Security Prison faded into the darkness. Ahead, the road stretched endless and open, full of possibilities that Nathan was only beginning to understand. He pulled out the photograph of his family and held it against his chest. "It's done," he whispered into the darkness. "I got him, Sarah. I got him for you and Emma. He's going to pay for what he did." The photograph didn't answer. But somehow Nathan felt like Sarah was listening anyway. The cemetery was quiet at 6:00 a.m. Nathan stood before 2 headstones, their marble surfaces catching the first light of dawn. Sarah Elizabeth Walker. Emma Grace Walker. Beloved wife and mother. Beloved daughter. Together forever. 12 years. 12 years since he had last stood in this spot watching their caskets lower into the ground, making a promise he had only now kept. I found him, Nathan said quietly. Crawford, the man who gave the order. He's going to spend the rest of his life in a cage thinking about what he did to you. The wind rustled through the oak trees surrounding the cemetery. Nathan imagined it was Sarah's voice telling him she was proud. I don't know who I am anymore, he continued. For so long, revenge was the only thing keeping me alive, the only reason to wake up in the morning. Now that it's done, I feel empty, like there's nothing left inside me worth saving. Shit. He knelt and placed the photographs Rodriguez had returned to him at the base of Sarah's headstone. I'm going away, new name, new life. The man you married doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe I was always just pretending to be normal, pretending to be happy, pretending to deserve you. Tears streamed down his face. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. I'm sorry I let my work become more important than my family. I'm sorry for every moment I missed, every birthday, every anniversary, every chance to tell you how much you meant to me. He touched Emma's headstone, his fingers tracing the letters of her name. And Emma, my beautiful little girl. You would have been 17 now, finishing high school, thinking about college, getting ready to conquer the world. His voice broke. I would have taught you to drive. I would have threatened every boy who came to take you on a date. I would have walked you down the aisle someday. He stayed there for a long time, grieving openly for the first time since their deaths. Finally, he stood. Goodbye, he whispered. I'll carry you with me always. Every step I take, every breath I draw, it's because of you. Because you loved me. Because you believed I could be better than I was. He turned and walked away. He didn't look back. The black SUV was waiting at the cemetery entrance. Nathan climbed in, wiping his face with the back of his hand. Where now? The driver asked. Anywhere. Just drive. They pulled onto the highway as the sun rose over Dallas. Nathan watched the city recede in the rearview mirror, wondering if he would ever see it again. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. The network remembers. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. Nathan stared at the message. Crawford's associates, already making threats, already positioning themselves for revenge. He showed the text to the driver, who glanced at it with professional concern. We should report this. Report it to who? Rodriguez said herself that some of Crawford's people are probably inside the agency. Any report I file could end up in the wrong hands. Then what do you want to do? Nathan considered his options. He could run, disappear into the new identity the agency had provided, become Thomas Mitchell and hope that Crawford's network never found him. Or he could fight. Pull over. What? I said pull over. The driver complied, steering the SUV onto the shoulder of a quiet stretch of highway. Nathan stepped out and walked a few paces into the empty field beside the road. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number the text had come from. It rang twice before someone answered. Mr. Walker? The voice was male-cultured, cold. I wondered how long it would take you to respond. Who is this to someone who has invested a great deal of time and money into Senator Crawford's organization, someone who is very unhappy about recent developments? Crawford is finished. His network is exposed. Whatever you think you're going to accomplish, it's too late. Is it? The voice sounded amused. You dismantled one operation, one piece of a much larger puzzle. Did you really think Crawford was the only player? Did you really think bringing him down would change anything? Nathan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. What are you saying? I'm saying that Senator Crawford was useful, but he was never essential. The network he helped build will continue with or without him. The money will keep flowing. The connections will remain intact. All you've accomplished is creating a temporary inconvenience. Then why are you calling me? Because you've proven yourself capable, resourceful, dangerous. Those are qualities that could be valuable to the right employer. Nathan laughed bitterly. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a choice. You can spend the rest of your life running from people who will never stop hunting you, or you can join us and put your skills to profitable use. I'll take option 3. There is no option 3. There's always an option 3. Nathan's voice hardened. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find everyone connected to Crawford's network, and I'm going to tear the whole thing down piece by piece until there's nothing left. Silence on the line. You're making a mistake, Mr. Walker. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Then you've chosen death. I hope it was worth it. The line went dead. Nathan stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he walked back to the SUV. Change of plans, he told the driver. Take me back to the agency field office. Sir, I'm not done yet. Rodriguez was not happy to see him. You're supposed to be on a plane to somewhere far away from here, she said, her voice tight with frustration. What the hell are you doing back? Nathan placed his phone on her desk and played the recording he had made of the conversation. Rodriguez listened with growing concern. You recorded it? Habit. The voice is disguised, but your technical people might be able to extract something useful. Location data, background noise, something that tells us who we're dealing with. And then what? You want to go after them. Crawford was one head of a hydra. Cut it off, 2 more grow back. If we want to destroy the network for good, we need to find the source. That's not your job anymore. You completed your mission. You brought down Crawford. What happens next is agency business. The agency has leaks. You said so yourself. Crawford had people inside. How do you know those people aren't still there? How do you know they won't sabotage any investigation before it gets started? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. What are you proposing? Let me work outside official channels, no reports, no oversight, no paper trail that Crawford's people can follow. Give me resources and let me hunt. That's not how we operate. It's how I operate, and it's the only way this ends. Rodriguez studied him with calculating eyes. You know what you're asking for, complete deniability. If something goes wrong, the agency will disavow you. You'll be on your own. I've been on my own for 12 years. I'm used to it. And if you succeed, if you actually manage to bring down the entire network, then you get the credit, the agency gets the win, and I get to disappear for real knowing that no one else will have to go through what I went through. Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. Give me 24 hours. I need to make some calls, talk to some people who don't officially exist. If I can get authorization for what you're proposing, you'll hear from me. And if you can't, then you take your new identity and you run. Because without agency backing, you won't last 6 months against these people. Nathan nodded. Fair enough. He stood to leave, but Rodriguez's voice stopped him. Walker? Yes. Why are you doing this? Really, Crawford is done. Your family has been avenged. Why put yourself back in the line of fire? Nathan thought about the question. He thought about Sarah and Emma. He thought about David Chen and his daughter. He thought about all the families that had been destroyed by Crawford's network, all the lives that had been ruined, all the suffering that would continue if the Hydra wasn't killed once and for all. Because someone has to, he said finally. Because if I walk away now knowing what I know, I'm no better than the people who let it happen in the first place. That's a hell of a burden to carry. It's my burden. I chose it, and I'll see it through. He left without another word. The next 24 hours were the longest of Nathan's life. He stayed in a safe house on the outskirts of Dallas, waiting for Rodriguez's call, running scenarios in his head, preparing for whatever came next. At 3:47 a.m., his phone rang. It's done, Rodriguez said. You have authorization, unofficial, unacknowledged, but real. Resources will be provided through secure channels. You report directly to me and no one else. What changed? Someone higher up the food chain decided that the network Crawford helped build is too dangerous to leave intact. They're willing to bend the rules if it means eliminating the threat. Who decided? That's above your pay grade, and mine, frankly. Just know that you have support. Limited, deniable, but real. What about the leak Crawford's people inside the agency? That's being handled separately. Internal investigation, off the books. By the time you're ready to move, we should have identified and neutralized any compromised personnel. Should. Nothing is certain in this business, Walker. You know that. He did. One more thing, Rodriguez continued. We've traced the call you received. The voice modulation was sophisticated, but our technical people managed to extract location data. The call originated from a private compound in Montana, registered to a shell company that traces back to a hedge fund that traces back to a dozen other entities designed to obscure the real owner. Did you find them? We found a name. Gerald Morrison, former intelligence officer. Retired 15 years ago. Official story is he's living quietly on investment income. Unofficial story is he's been running black ops for private clients ever since. Crawford's handler? Maybe, or maybe someone higher. Either way, he's your first target. Nathan felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with the start of a new hunt. When do I leave? Tomorrow morning. There's a flight out of Dallas at 6:00 a.m. that will get you to Montana by noon. After that, you are on your own. Understood. Walker. Yes. Be careful. Morrison is dangerous. More dangerous than Crawford if our intelligence is accurate. He's survived in this business for 30 years by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone around him. Then I'll have to be smarter and more ruthless than him. The flight to Montana was uneventful. Nathan used the time to study the file Rodriguez had provided. Gerald Morrison, 67 years old, former CIA case officer with specialization in covert operations, rumored connections to organized crime arms dealers and corrupt politicians across 3 continents. The compound was located in a remote valley surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. Security was extensive. Guards, cameras, motion sensors, the works. Getting in wouldn't be easy, but Nathan had never been interested in easy. He landed in Billings at 12:15 p.m. and picked up a rental car that had been arranged through agency channels. Inside the glove compartment was a case containing weapons, surveillance equipment, and enough cash to operate for several weeks. The drive to Morrison's compound took 4 hours. Nathan parked 2 miles away and hiked the rest of the distance on foot using the terrain for cover. By the time he reached observation range, the sun was setting behind the mountains. He set up his surveillance equipment and waited. The compound came alive after dark. Vehicles arriving, men in suits entering through the main gate. The kind of activity that suggested a meeting of some significance. Nathan counted 12 guests in addition to Morrison's regular security team. Something big was happening. He activated his directional microphone and aimed it at the main building. Fragments of conversation drifted through his earpiece. The Walker situation needs to be resolved. Crawford was careless, but the network remains intact. Transition to new leadership must be seamless. Nathan's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a council of war, the heads of Crawford's network gathering to plan their next move, and Nathan Walker was on their agenda. He pulled out his phone and texted Rodriguez. Multiple high-value targets at Morrison compound. Request immediate backup. The response came 30 seconds later. Backup not available. Maintain surveillance. Do not engage. Nathan stared at the message. Do not engage. Standard protocol. Gather intelligence. Report findings. Let the bureaucracy decide what happens next. But by the time the bureaucracy made a decision, these people would be scattered to the winds. The opportunity to take them all down at once would be lost. He thought about Sarah and Emma. He thought about David Chen and his daughter. He thought about all the other families who would suffer if he followed orders and let these monsters escape. He made his decision. He texted Rodriguez one more time. Sorry, can't wait. Then he turned off his phone and began his approach. The first guard never saw him coming. Nathan emerged from the shadows like a ghost, his hand closing over the man's mouth while his other arm wrapped around his throat. 8 seconds of pressure, and the guard went limp, unconscious, but alive. Nathan took his radio and keycard. The second guard was patrolling the perimeter fence. Nathan waited until he rounded a corner, then struck with precision. A blow to the base of the skull. Silent. Effective. Another unconscious body hidden in the darkness. He reached the main building at 9:47 p.m. Through the windows, he could see the council gathered around a conference table. Morrison sat at the head, a silver-haired man with the cold eyes of someone who had ordered deaths without losing sleep. 12 men. Some Nathan recognized from the files Rodriguez had provided. Others were new faces, unknown players in a game that had been running for decades. All of them needed to be stopped. Nathan considered his options. He could call in their location, let the agency handle it. But Morrison had connections. Lawyers, politicians. Even if they were arrested tonight, half of them would be free within a week. Or he could end it himself. Permanently. The choice wasn't as difficult as it should have been. He entered through a service door, moving through the building with practiced efficiency. 2 more guards went down, unconscious, their weapons and radios collected. He reached the conference room door at 10:03 p.m. Inside, Morrison was speaking. Walker is a liability. He knows too much. The agency may have cut him loose, but that doesn't mean he's stopped being dangerous. I want him found and eliminated. No mistakes this time. Nathan pushed open the door. 13 heads turned toward him. For a moment, no one moved. Then Morrison smiled. Mr. Walker, how kind of you to save us the trouble of hunting you down. Morrison, I was hoping we could talk. Talk. Morrison's smile widened. By all means, what would you like to discuss? Your network. Crawford was just the beginning. I want to know everything. Names, operations, financial channels, all of it. And if I refuse, Nathan's hand moved to the weapon at his waist. Then this conversation gets much shorter. Morrison glanced at his associates, then back at Nathan. You're outnumbered. My security team will be here any moment. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. Your security team is currently taking a nap, and your associates don't look like fighters to me. Bankers, lawyers, politicians. Men who pay others to do their dirty work. Nathan's voice hardened. But there's no one to pay tonight. It's just us. One of the men at the table reached for something under his jacket. Nathan's weapon was out and aimed before the man's hand touched cloth. Don't. The man froze. Everyone put your hands on the table, slowly. Any sudden movements and I start shooting. 12 pairs of hands emerged and settled on the polished wood surface. Morrison remained calm, almost amused. Impressive. You're everything the reports said you were, but you're also alone. Even if you eliminate everyone in this room, the network will survive. It's too big, too distributed, too resilient. Then I'll keep hunting. One piece at a time until there's nothing left. That would take years, decades. You'd spend the rest of your life fighting shadows. I've already spent 12 years fighting shadows. What's a few more? Morrison studied him with newfound respect. You're serious. This isn't just a mission for you, it's a calling. My family was murdered because Crawford wanted to send a message. Every day since then has been building toward this moment. You can tell me what I need to know voluntarily, or I can make you tell me. Either way, the network dies tonight. The standoff lasted several seconds. Then Morrison did something unexpected. He laughed. You know what I admire most about you, Mr. Walker, your conviction. Most men in your position would have taken the money and disappeared, started a new life somewhere comfortable, but you came here alone, outnumbered with nothing but skill and determination. He shook his head slowly. That kind of conviction is rare. And valuable. I'm not for sale. Everyone is for sale. The currency just varies. Morrison leaned forward. What if I told you there was another way, a way to destroy the network that doesn't involve you dying in this room? I'm listening? The network operates on trust, mutual dependence. Every person at this table knows secrets about every other person. That's what keeps us loyal. But it's also what makes us vulnerable. Morrison's eyes gleamed. Give me immunity, real immunity, and I'll give you everything. Every name, every account, every operation, the entire structure delivered to your agency on a silver platter. Why would you do that? Because I'm old Mr. Walker, because I've spent 30 years looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone like you to come through that door, because I'm tired of the game and ready to exit. His voice dropped. And because Crawford wasn't the only one who made enemies. Some of the men at this table would happily see me dead if they thought they could get away with it. Nathan glanced at the others. Fear in their eyes. Calculation. Morrison was right. These weren't allies. They were competitors held together by mutual blackmail and shared profit. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to be practical. You can try to take us all down by force and probably die in the attempt. Or you can let me help you dismantle the network from the inside. The outcome is the same. The method is different. Nathan considered the offer. Every instinct screamed that it was a trap. Morrison was a manipulator, a survivor who had outlasted dozens of threats over 30 years. Trusting him was dangerous, but so was the alternative. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't, but I know something about you, Mr. Walker. I know you're smart enough to verify everything I give you before acting on it. I know you'll have agency resources checking every name, every account, every detail. And I know that if I lie to you, if I try to double-cross you, you'll come back and finish what you started tonight. You're afraid of me. I'm respectful of your capabilities. There's a difference. Morrison spread his hands. So, do we have a deal? Nathan made his decision. 6 months later, the network was gone. Morrison had kept his word. Names led to names. Accounts led to accounts. Operations were exposed, assets were seized, and dozens of arrests were made across 6 countries. The media called it the largest corruption case in American history. Nathan Walker, officially dead, watched the coverage from a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. His phone rang. It's done, Rodriguez said. The last of the major players was arrested this morning. Morrison is in witness protection, spilling his guts to federal prosecutors. The network is finished. What about the others, the men who were at that meeting? Scattered to the winds initially, but we tracked them down one by one. Most are facing multiple life sentences. A few tried to run. They didn't get far. Nathan closed his eyes. And Crawford, honey, convicted on all charges last week. He'll die in prison. His lawyers are appealing, but it's over. Over. The word felt strange. Foreign. For 12 years, the hunt had been everything. Now that it was finished, Nathan didn't know what to do with himself. What happens to me now, huh? He asked. That depends on you. Thomas Mitchell's identity is still active. You can disappear, start fresh, live whatever life you want. Rodriguez paused. Or you can come back. The agency could use someone with your skills, off the books, handling situations that require a specialized approach. Another mission. Another purpose. If you want it. Nathan thought about Sarah and Emma. He thought about the photographs he still carried with him everywhere. He thought about the promise he had made at their graves. I'll think about it. Take your time, you've earned it. She hung up. Nathan sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful, peaceful, the kind of sunset Sarah would have loved. He pulled out the photograph of his family and held it against his heart. I did it, he whispered. It's really over. They're all gone. Every single one of them. The photograph didn't answer, but for the first time in 12 years, Nathan felt something he had forgotten was possible. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, maybe not ever, but peace. The quiet certainty that comes from finishing what you started, from keeping a promise that seemed impossible to keep. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He opened it. A photograph. David Chen standing outside a modest house, his arm around a teenage girl who had his eyes and her mother's smile. The caption read, "First day home. Thank you for everything." Nathan smiled. Maybe the mission wasn't over after all. Maybe it was just beginning in a different way. He typed a response. Take care of her. She's lucky to have a father like you. Then he set down his phone and watched the sunset until the last light faded from the sky. The next morning he called Rodriguez. I'm in, he said. What's the next assignment? There's a situation in Miami. Human trafficking ring with connections to international organized crime. We need someone to infiltrate and gather evidence. When do I start? How soon can you be there? Nathan smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in years. I'm on my way. He packed his bag, tucked the photograph of his family into his jacket pocket, and walked out of the apartment. The war against evil never ended. The shadows never stopped breeding new monsters. But as long as there were men like Nathan Walker willing to hunt them, willing to sacrifice everything for the chance to protect the innocent, the light would never be extinguished. Sarah and Emma were gone. Nothing would ever bring them back. But their memory lived on in every life Nathan saved, every family he protected, every monster he brought to justice. That was their legacy. That was his purpose. And he would carry it with him until his last breath. Because some promises are worth keeping no matter the cost, and some debts can only be paid in blood. Nathan Walker, the man they called the Ghost, disappeared into the morning light. Behind him, the past faded into memory. Ahead, the future stretched endless and uncertain. But for the first time in 12 years, he faced it without fear. Because he was no longer running from his pain. He was running toward his purpose. And nothing in this world, or any other, would ever stop him again. The hunters had become the prey. The prey had become the hunter. And in the end, justice had prevailed. Not the kind written in law books or argued in courtrooms. The kind that lives in the hearts of men who refuse to surrender, refuse to compromise, refuse to let evil triumph over good. The kind that makes monsters run for their lives. The kind that Nathan Walker had carried inside him since the night he lost everything that mattered. The kind that had finally, after 12 long years, found its way home.